Good afternoon, everyone. Brendan from Starpoint Australis, and welcome to the Tuesday, the week that was 2025 edition. We finally made it to the new year. Huzzah! Well, there's been lots that have been happening, but not much of it in Australia. So obviously we were on holiday, which was great. Had some time just to unplug from the world and literally think about what I was going to have for breakfast, what I was going to have for dinner, what I was going to wander around and do for the day, and pretty much that's it, which is great. But I did try and find some time to do some designing and catch up on some of the designs and get them out of my head. I use it almost like meditation. It's kind of odd, but that's just me. So what did I do? I went and designed version 3 of my prototype. And when I say version 3, not rapid iterations. So we had the USS Enterprise, which was my 9 position 2-inch filter wheel. The thing's massive. It's kind of like that. A bit overkill. I don't have 9 filters, so I don't know what I was thinking, but I made it and it worked. I then have the current filter wheel that I use at the moment, and it's pretty good, but there's some things that I wasn't very happy with, and predominantly the mechanics in the back, and how it held the filter wheel and how it moved the filter wheel. I needed a bigger motor than I really wanted to be driving it because of the weight. So I had some time on my hands, and or I should say time up my sleeves or time on my hands to go and build a new filter wheel. So I did all the 3D design and electronics whilst I was away, and it took me a few days to do, but it was in between, and I enjoyed sitting by the beachfront, sipping on some bintangs whilst doing some designing. That was pretty cool. But yeah, so we'll talk of a few features and some of the design thoughts and processes that I went through. I think the biggest change from version 2 to version 3 is the fact that the motor now sits on the outside. It doesn't drive from the middle. And I've moved from a magnetic presence sensor to an optical disruptor sensor. So basically it sees whether light is there or not. And it only has a 300 micron, 0.3 of a millimeter or 300 micron window of which it sees in. So when you start doing some maths, I've got to do it yet for this one, but from the center out to the edge is about 10 centimeters or 100 millimeters. And we've got the sensor, the little optical sensor out here. The angle of which that creates for accuracy is going to be so minuscule it's not funny. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how accurate it is, because what you want is your filter wheel to be repeatable, and it is repeatable for a lot of people. And because they're using 2-inch filters with an APS-C size sensor, you never see the edges of your filter carousel. But I do, because I use 2-inch filters with a full frame. So I always get a little bit of vignetting right in the very corners, even at f5. At f3.5, it's actually pretty severe. But the good thing about it is that you will be able to repeatedly land your filters with all the little dust motes perfectly back on itself. And what that allows you to do is to have flats that are better calibrated for your sessions. So as astrophotographers, we don't just do one shot wonder and we're away. It might be 3, 4, 5 weeks or over months that we take these images, and we need to make sure that the filters come back to the same spot every single time. And you got to remember that every single time that your filter moves to do a focus run, to move to a new filter, there's movement and there could be errors bringing into it from there. So I'm going to do some trickery in the firmware to make sure that I'm seeing and continually updating positions and making sure that it's perfect. Not only that, but I think this is just it's a lot better than my last version. Some of the other features, now it's more on the front here. So on the front, you can see the normal 1, 2, 3. Normally you'd have 6 holes here, and that's where your off-axis guide would attach to. There is 6 holes here, but there's 2 that are sitting right up on the edge here. They're very similar to the other ones, but they're actually not in the same circle, you could call it. But what it is that they go straight through the thick, this thick edge piece of aluminium, go straight through that, and then they bolt directly in to the hole, the main filter hole at the front here. So they come in at the top, and what that does is that when you have a look at how these get held, you know, like you've got it on your filter, your focuser. I've got one here for purpose, and get this right in the right spot. These lock in really, really tight. If you don't get it right, it won't sit down. There it goes, click. So when you've got the SP3, you've got your off-axis guider being held right at that very point there. Now you can see where that this extension here touches. Literally, that force there is where you get the most bending. Keeping that in mind, that if it's all bending on this part here, whether it's lifting up or whether it's sagging down and trying to lift over, if we can hold that better, and for instance, if you hold it as tight as you can right here, this is where, if we can make that stiffer, it's going to work better. That's the theory in any case. But yeah, that was one of the design thoughts. The other design thought is obviously you've got the main motor sitting out here, and it's belt driven, so we can eliminate the backlash in the belt. So there's no gears. It's not a friction drive, but it is a belt drive, so it will hold it, and it is very, very accurate in positional. That's what you want. And then it's all bearings, so you can see that it flicks around. If you get the tension just right, it'll keep on going and going and going. So that's another piece of the puzzle, because then you can use a smaller motor. A smaller motor means less weight, and away you go. Now, the other part about it is the position of where that motor sits and where everything else sits. So obviously I can't get too much around on this side here, or I could make some more real estate for the PCB and the other loads to sit, but I've put everything that's centered around that center part. I've put everything so that it is relative, very, very close. Now, why do I do that? Unlike a lot of filter wheels that you see, where you see all of the electronics and whatnot sitting right down the bottom here, the furthest away, this one's as close as it can be. Once again, it's that whole premise of holding your focuser or your filter wheel and all your camera at the strongest point. So always thinking about where that load's going. So that's that. What else did I think about? So I'm using this, obviously it's a prototype, so I'm using it to learn how to do some things. And one of the things that I'm learning about on this one here is changing how power distribution happens. So you'll see in things like the EQ8s, the EQ8s now have, you know, the USBs and whatnot sitting right close by. A lot of the high-end mounts will have power distribution and central through axis reticulation. But a lot of the standards like your EQ6s and whatnot, they're not built for that kind of thought pattern, if you know what I mean. They're built to a price, they're very good at what they do, but they don't have that power reticulation close by. So I'm trying to move away from having multiple boxes with equipment in it. Now, that is the big part of where I'm heading with my power distribution. Instead of having boxes, I want to place power reticulation into places where you've got to have stuff there anyhow, aka a filter wheel. So what I've done on the PCB that I've designed for this system is to have your power in, but then have two power outs. Now those power outs, I'm rating them up to 10 amps total, so that's the total draw, and I think it's 5 amps per channel max. So what you can do is you can bring one power up to the filter wheel, and then you can power your camera from the filter wheel, and you can power your focuser from the filter wheel as well. So if you can power both your filter wheel, your focuser, and your camera, the only other two things that you've got to power is your computer and your mount, typically. Maybe a dew heater. But I'll get to that soon, because I've also got real estate on this side here. So if I get, I won't say get lucky, if these work, then I can bring it around this side here, and I'll actually reticulate power out the other side. One day I'll learn about USB and USB-C, USB data, and that way then I can run USB hub, power in, power out, and everything. Now the other thing that's in here, other than being fused, so it's got an electronic fuse, so it's resettable. Apart from that, I've also done monitoring of the power situation, so I can see what current is going through the system, and I can see what voltages are going through the system. So I might be able to even give early warnings that something's not quite right, where the voltage is right at the last minute. So right at the very end, where it's just about to go into your system. So yeah, having a bit of a play there. Sorry it's a little bit techie, but I thought for those of you who love to see these little things that I build and some of the thought patterns behind it. With that, if you have any questions, drop them down into the comments and I'll get to answering them. So that was my holiday design, and then I got back last Wednesday, and between last Wednesday, other than a couple of days, I've been into the workshop and I've fabricated this. So whereas my first USS Enterprise took me about 5 weeks to make, and that was all manual on the manual mills, this has taken me in the order of a couple of days to design, program for the CNC, figure out how to hold it, and then come up with a product. It's a lot quicker. Now I reckon I could drop that down into probably 2 days at the most on my meager equipment. So that's that one, the 2-inch 7-position color filter wheel, and that will made up to the SP3, and the next part of that will be the off-axis guider that I've got to put on the front. I'm getting pretty good at the off-axis guiders now, and away we go from there. So that was that playing. What else have we been up to? Well, we've started preparing for NEAF 2025. That is pretty cool. I've been working with Stephen Ramsden, Charlie Bates Solar Observatory, non-for-profit, or the Sunlit Earth Project, and I'm looking forward to working with Stephen on outside with his Solar Expo. He would like to have an Octans out there and put a solar telescope into the Octans, so people can use the whole system and see what it's like. I think, you know, when you stick a telescope out in the middle of a field, whether it be nighttime or daytime, if it's just out in the middle of nowhere, you just feel open. It's like it's an interesting feeling. You can just walk up to it. There's heaps of people around capturing, you know, like your attention, so you get distracted. I think having the solar telescope inside the Octans, where you can kind of semi-shield out the peripheral, it'll make it a lot more, I would like to say cozy, or it'll be more intimate, so that you'll be there with Stephen. I believe he's bringing 2 students along with him as well to come to NEAF, but it'll just be, I think, a better experience overall. I'll look forward to seeing how that ends up being, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the whole show on there. What else have we been working on for NEAF? We've been working on the little expo bags. So we're a lot more organised this year than we were last year. We'd literally just started the business and everything was up in the air. This year we've had a good 12 months to settle in, find our feet a little bit, and yeah, start learning. So I'm looking very forward to that, because it's not that far away now. What else have we got? Wow, this one's a cracker. So, as we know, on the internet we have trolls, and you've got 2 choices with trolls. You can either engage with them, or you can see it for what it is, have a mighty laugh, and let it blow past you. So I had a conversation with, not publicly, I had a private conversation with this troll, and they kept calling me a bot. I know that I work hard, and I know sometimes I come across as a robot because I don't rest. But this person kept calling me a bot, and then started calling me an AI, and then said that my AI game was weak, and that a whole heap of other stuff. And I'm like, this is comical. And everyone that I've told thus far has just laughed. So I think I'll get a lot more of this happening, but yeah, it was pretty good to see. And it's good experience for me as well. You know, like I look at everything as an experience, because if I don't have that experience, I don't know what to look for in the future. But yeah, that was a highlight of my week this week. All right then, well, I'll leave you to it. Next week we should hopefully have some more parts for the new filter wheel. That should be pretty fun to show you. But apart from that, hopefully you guys have a wonderful week ahead, and hopefully whatever flavour astrophotography, astronomy that you do, that you get to it. Till next time, bye.